Welcome to Here Comes the Boom. I'm your host, Jacob Polacheck. This is a Kentucky basketball recruiting podcast talking all things Kentucky basketball recruiting, brought to you by KSR and KSR Plus. We've got a great guest for you today, Sam Lance of the Field of 68. As many of you have probably seen, the Field of 68 is partnering with On3. So, Sam, first off, I got to welcome you to the show and welcome you to the On3 network.
Well, I appreciate it, Jacob. I'm really excited for everything the Field of 68 is going to bring to On3 at the national college basketball level. And, now we're kind of coworkers in a sense again. It's been quite some time from whenever Jacob and I were the sports editors of the University Daily Kansan, taking down the news team. I remember we were all about taking down that news team and being on top at the sports staff.
Yeah, it is great to be reunited again. Those are some fun days back at KU, and now we're flipping it over, talking UK. Before we get into all of this, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, our friend Andy Ludicky at myperfectfranchise.net. Andy's a huge college sports fan and franchise veteran, having owned multiple franchises and businesses. Using his expertise, he helps others find their American dream through a very thorough consultation and evaluation process. If you are wanting to find a way out of corporate America, wanting a side hustle business, or a way to diversify, reach out to Andy, as he's got a ton of knowledge in this world. And best of all, his services are 100% free to you always. Head to myperfectfranchise.net to learn more, or you can call or text Andy at 404-973-9901. All right, let's get into it. We got a lot of recruiting updates, a lot of players to talk about. Who better to start with than talking about the number one player in the country, Tyron Stokes? We've covered him a lot on KSR Plus. Kentucky has been heavily involved in this recruitment. Sam, I want to get your takes on where do you see things standing in that recruitment? He took an official visit to USC recently, and he's reported to be taking visits to Oregon and Gonzaga coming up. So, Sam, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this is a really interesting recruitment, obviously, because Tyron Stokes is from Louisville. I think that it obviously stands out here with Louisville kind of being a player in here. Got the first official visit, obviously, from Stokes, and then Kentucky being a player. I'm not going to lie. If I were Tyron Stokes, I would be a little scared about, going to the Big Blue. Going to a rival fan base and then going back home is certainly an option on the table too. But, the Nike ties are there with Stokes. Kentucky kind of has the edge there. So I'm really interested to see if Kentucky or Louisville ends up getting Tyron Stokes. He ends up staying kind of, in his home state. I do think USC is another major player. Here, if I had to pick a school that was outside of Kentucky, it would probably be USC. He's been in LA for a while for high school now, obviously playing football there now as well. So I think USC has put themselves in a pretty good position too. But it's going to be really interesting to see who lands the number one player. And I think undoubtedly from watching everybody this summer, Tyron Stokes is the number one player in this class.
You talk about him playing football. You talk about his recruitment. There are a few things I want to touch on there. First, I continue to hear Kentucky's in a good spot, but there's a lot of schools trying. That USC visit went very well, and Kansas is still making a push. He's still got these two upcoming visits, and as you mentioned, the hometown school, Louisville, is looming. So there's a lot of work still to be done for Kentucky if they want to land the number one player in the class. And like you talked about, him playing football. If you want to learn more about that, over at KSR Plus, we talked to his high school football coach who shared about how this all came to be, because you don't see many high-level basketball players opting to play football kind of out of nowhere for his senior year after not playing since middle school. So go check that out. And now I want to ask about some guard targets for Kentucky, starting with Deron Rippey. He's I believe he's the number one point guard in the class. He's highly ranked. He's got a lot of schools on him, but Kentucky's getting an official visit from him soon. So, Sam, what do you see in that recruitment?
Yeah, I think Deron Rippey is probably with Dylan Mingo was probably one of my favorite guards over the summer. Really explosive. He's not the tallest guy, but he's super, super explosive from the point guard position. I really like where Kentucky has kind of positioned themselves in this recruitment. Obviously, I believe Pope went to see him recently, or I think Michael saw him. Either way, Deron Rippey is kind of emerging, I think, as probably Kentucky's top target at the guard position. If you look at some of the other guys, they're targeting Talon Kinney. Obviously, there's a lot of Kansas buzz there right now. Ikenna Alozie. I've been hearing a lot of Arizona buzz. Some West Coast schools with Ikenna, him being out there, Dream City Christian. So I think if Kentucky does end up taking a point guard in this class, I think Deron Rippey is kind of the name that's standing out to me right now.
Yeah, you mentioned the staff going to visit him. Not only did Mark Pope, Jason Hart, and Alvin Brooks all go in for an in-home assistant coach, like you mentioned, Mikhail McLean went and saw him at his school. So they've had the whole staff, almost the whole staff, go and see him, visiting him twice. They're definitely making him a priority, and they'll have him on campus soon. Another guard target at a prolific prep, Caleb Holt. He just took his official visit to Kentucky. His dad talked to KSR Plus about that visit. A lot of schools involved there. Alabama's one that's coming up a lot. So, Sam, what are you hearing about Caleb Holt?
Yeah, that's another interesting one with some hometown ties, kind of similar to Stokes. Holt's got Alabama and Auburn both kind of in there for him. And also, Houston has kind of been a player for Caleb Holt for quite some time. And then you got Arkansas in there as well. I think Kentucky is another school that's positioned themselves pretty well in this recruitment. If Kentucky ends up missing out on a guy like Tyron Stokes, maybe Caleb Holt is somebody you kind of go all out for. To me, it's Tyron Stokes, number one. And then I think Jordan Smith and Caleb Holt, I think, are kind of in that next tier together, both just guards that are college ready. I mean, Caleb Holt's going to come in from day one and be able to guard. He's going to be able to hit shots. You saw during the USA, winning gold with AJ Dybasta, Michael Brown, and all of them. He's playing multiple years up and still making an impact, one of the better players on the floor. So I think Caleb Holt, Kentucky has positioned themselves well, and it would certainly be a really, really big get.
You mentioned Jordan Smith. He's going to be visiting for Big Blue Madness. Two other players have already set official visits for Big Blue Madness, that being Ethan Taylor and Josh Irving, both 2026 four-star centers. And that brings us to kind of a wider point I want to ask you about, which is Kentucky's recruiting at the center position, because as I mentioned, they have those two visits coming up. And then you had Arafan John on campus this past weekend. You had Sion Kita on campus over the summer. So that's four centers that they've offered that they've either had on campus or set to have on campus. Sam, how do you see Kentucky approaching this position?
I think Kentucky clearly is wanting to take at least somebody at the center position in this class. And this class has just been so, different in terms of, kind of, there's nobody committed at this point, Jacob. Like, there's nobody of these top names really that are committed besides Crow and Tony Bryant to Missouri. I know there's probably a couple more sprinkled in there, but a lot of these guys are still far, far away from decisions. So I really think it just comes down to how the pieces fall on the board here, who Kentucky lands at the center position. If Arafan lands, somewhere, they might have to pivot to an Ethan Taylor. If he makes an early decision, you might have to pivot to an Irving, and then Kita, obviously great international prospect to bring in. So I see Kentucky taking somebody from the 5 spot, but there's still a long way to go, a lot of dominoes to fall. This is just kind of a weird recruiting cycle right now.
Yeah, you talk about it being a weird recruiting cycle. That kind of brings me to my final thought. I know Matt Norlander posted a really good piece over on CBS Sports about this 2026 recruiting cycle. And I think the reason you're not seeing a lot of these guys committing is because schools are still trying to figure out this rev share dynamic and how much they can give players. So it wouldn't surprise me to see a lot of these recruitments drag out into the spring. And Kentucky will be certainly going after plenty of guys during this cycle. So be sure to go and subscribe to KSR Plus, subscribe to the KSR YouTube channel. We're going to have you covered with all that. And Sam, where can people find your work?
Yeah, we'll be at the Field of 68 team site. It's just On3 sites / Field of 68. We're going to have all sorts of content there this year during the season, leading up to the season, all sorts of preseason content, top internationals, top transfers. I actually just spent my entire day yesterday, Polacheck, pretty much, going through every team, every international edition, and putting them all in a spreadsheet with their information. And I think we're going to get all the coaches to kind of comment on all the internationals. So really, everything you need to know about this upcoming basketball season is going to be on the Field of 68 website On3.
Well, Sam, we'll be following all your work. Thanks for coming on today.
Yeah. Appreciate it, Paul Check. Always good to see you.